a martial arts movie podcast.
I threw that shit before I walked in the room.
Featuring drunken Thai boxer Will.
Too bad you will die.
The also drunken wrestler Mark.
I said I don't want trouble.
And drunken karate master Zero.
You've lost your balls.
And now,
I know Kung Fu. You know, baby.
Fists of Fail.
Were there really millionaires on this train? I don't even feel like that was the case at all.
Yeah, no, but there was Shanghai in this movie. Do you get the joke? Because the alternative title is Shanghai Express. Oh, there you go. Look like the kind of comedy that we are starting off with. Today we're talking about Millionaire's Express. Oh, Happy New Year's, everybody. We're starting off the year with another theme. The theme being Sammo Month. Sammo Hung Month. That sounded weird.
Yeah.
That sounded weird just saying Sammo Month. Why are we doing Sammo Hung again, Zero?
Because it's his birthday this month.
Oh, well, happy birthday. we already covered Jackie. I feel like it's appropriate we cover Sammo. We don't really have in mind yet how far we're going to go into his catalog, because not only is he an action star, he's also an action choreographer, director, and main director. So, there's a lot of things to cover, but I guess a good place to start would be Millionaire's Express, which is a movie that I think I've been wanting to watch for quite some time now.
We were potentially going to watch this originally in July for our abandoned theme of martial arts westerns.
Yeah.
And I saw this and I was like, oh, this kind of looks like a martial arts western. This might be fun. But then we realized we couldn't find any more martial arts westerns to talk about, so we had to abandon.
Yep.
And here we are, finally getting around to talking about it.
Yeah. To be honest, I knew nothing about this movie, whatsoever. All I knew is that it was one of those required watches. I've wanted to watch this for quite some time now. And, it would every once in a while show up on my feed, like, oh, look at this fight between Yoon Bu and Sammo, or Yoon Bu versus Cynthia Rothrock.
Yep.
And then, nothing else about the movie would really... no one talked about anything else about the movie, so it just never showed up on my radar otherwise. And then after watching this movie, I'm like, oh, that's why. Now I know why.
Yes. Man, okay. What do you call this type of story? Because I think we've maybe discussed something similar like this before. And I think I've seen movies like this before. What happens when you have just a shitload of characters and we just kind of follow all their separate storylines, and then eventually they all come together at the end in the finale for, the big showdown or whatever.
Well,
there's probably an archetype for this, right?
I mean, this movie has an ensemble cast, so I don't know if that's a genre, the way that you're describing it, but that's basically what this movie is. There's a lot of characters, and there's a lot of well-named Hong Kong actors in the movie. Hong Kong and international actors in the movie. So it's trying to bring in a whole bunch of people all at once. I guess it's not an anthology, but I think I know what you're talking about, though. There's a lot of disparate storylines that all converge at the very end, kind of.
That's exactly what it is. Basically, we're following so many freaking characters in this movie that all get on this train and then eventually get off at this town.
Yep.
And then you just slowly, you kind of have some character arcs going along, and then basically all hell breaks loose during the last 15 minutes, and they're all breaking loose together, right? They're all kind of doing their part. For not everyone, unfortunately. I noticed a few characters just disappear completely at the end of the film, and the whole time I was thinking, why did we spend any time with you? That was just a waste.
Yeah, so that was my major question. So before I watched this before you did, and I sent you a text, and I was like, Zero, I have a feeling that you're not going to like this movie. And I was basing that suspicion off the fact that there are too many characters. And
boy.
Yeah, so was my prediction correct?
You were partially correct. I really don't like too many characters in my movie. I'm all about character consolidation. Mm-hmm. And man, they could have consolidated so many of these characters. Some of them just have like a few lines and you don't remember them. Only like if you remember that Hong Kong actor, then you might remember them, but otherwise, like sometimes they're on the screen and then they're gone, and then maybe they'll show up again later, and then that's it. And I was like, no, like what's his face, Yunhua was in this like for like a second.
He's in a couple scenes.
He's got like one scene.
Well, that's the thing. There's a lot of major stars in this movie, like Eric Tsang, for example. He's a really big name. We have I was gonna say, I already mentioned Richard Norton, and not Richard Norton, Richard Chan. I'm blanking on their name. Regardless, there's a lot of big stars in this movie, and the reason for this, and the reason why the cast is so bloated, is because this was a Chinese New Year release. This is this was something that really like catered to the Hong Kong audience. They wanted to get as many butts in that theater as possible. But oh boy, I mean, I'm trying not to be so negative. And like knowing that context, it actually puts me in a different frame of reference and understand that. However, without that, this movie really drags.
I fell asleep during it, unfortunately. I watched it again, obviously, but as I was sitting down, I was just like, where is this going?
Yeah.
Where is it going? What's going on?
Right.
And like I was having trouble following a lot of the story in the beginning. Like, why is Simo in Russia in that opening?
Because that doesn't matter. That really doesn't matter. It's just to show that he's kind of like not a criminal. Well, I guess he is a criminal, but that's not the best way to describe it.
He's on the lam. He's running.
He's on the lam,
like a government official.
Right.
No, but like I don't even know like why all those soldiers were there. It was like some sort of war games.
I think he was there pilfering. Samo was there pilfering them, and then he gets captured.
Yeah, but they were like faking their deaths, and then suddenly they're all alive again. Who knows? I was so confused by that opening.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like we always say this about Hong Kong productions, especially in the 80s. A lot of it is just on the cuff. Like there's no storyboarding. People just come up with the stories, the choreography, everything is they come up with on the fly, and they just film it. And they're like, all right, I hope this makes sense at the end of the movie, at the end of production, and we can make a movie out of this. So like those scenes were probably just like inserted because they just needed more content in it. But again,
this is like almost exactly 90 minutes. Like, this would have been a fine 70 minutes. Like they could have cut out so much for me personally.
Sure.
But anyway, Will, what is this movie about? Because too many plot lines. I'll assist in whatever way I can. But what's the main story?
The main story is Sammo Hung comes back to town. This town that's in... I'm just
in the middle of nowhere.
I'm going to call it China. It's in China, although it's a little anachronistic because it's a Western in China with Western set pieces. Like it looks like a Western. Wouldn't make any sense in any part of China because there's like people on horseback riding with their lassos and whatnot. It looks like a Western, but whatever. Like you take all the Western setting, you put it in China somewhere, and Samo's back in town. He is essentially like a bit of a bastard because he's trying to con the town somehow, even though he's from here. Get their money or whatever and fuck off live his own life. So
that really the story? I didn't think that was the case. Like, yes, I would say he is a bastard, but my understanding was he came back to the town to try and like lift things up for it.
Yeah.
Because they're essentially like in the middle of nowhere, right?
Well, that's what ends up happening at the end. Sorry, like what I just explained. But he does try at one point in the movie to blow up the train tracks and force people to basically force tourism into town.
Yes.
Yeah. So like I guess at surface level, like the intentions are good, but like the means of how he's accomplishing this, and also he's he does have an ulterior motive to things too. Like he does want to leave with the money. Also, there is one part of the movie that I don't feel like they explain very well, and I watched this twice already. There's this map that is introduced in the story. I have no idea what this map is, what it does, why is it important, and it's literally introduced at the end of the movie.
No, so basically there are 3 Japanese diplomats traveling on the Shanghai Express, or the Millionaire's Express, as the title of the movie is called. They have a map to the Terracotta Warriors, I think.
Is that what it was?
I don't know. Like, I think that's what it was. So they have a map to something, right? And so basically people want to get the map because it's the Japanese, and Chinese movies in the 80s don't like the Japanese, or in any time frame they don't like the Japanese. So they're trying to get the map from the Japanese. That's it. They're just trying to steal it from them.
Oh, okay. That's the part I was missing. I was like, why did... Because I felt like this map didn't matter all so much until the very end. And at that point, I was like, what is this MacGuffin? Why did they care at all?
They briefly mention it in the beginning. Like there's this huge moment of exposition, like when they're basically elaborating on the train heist plan.
Yep.
And everything just gets unloaded really quickly.
Okay.
But then they never kind of get back to it because there's so many characters. They have to keep on introducing characters and then taking them away and get back to different story arcs so that we remember why they're there and whatnot. Yeah.
And there across the movie, there's little characters with their own supporting, very small supporting roles. Not even supporting; they're completely just shoehorned in there for comedic sake. Like there's a Wang Fei Hong is for some reason in the movie. It's oh my god, why?
Yeah, those the 2 Sifus and then their little disciples were train passengers, and they give them their own little comedic scene, and then we never see them again. They don't. Those are some of the characters that don't do anything at the end of the movie. They have a beginning, they have something in the middle, and then once the action starts, that's it. They're gone. There was no purpose to have them there.
Right. And that's a perfect example of how when people complain about fan service nowadays in movies, I'm like, this is complete fan service. We're talking the 1986. They threw in Wang Fei Hong.
Be Wang Fei Hong, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. According to IMDb trivia, they said that they wanted Quan Ta King, who played the quote unquote original Wang Fei Hong in the movie. He refused, so they just casted a much younger version of him, and his father's played by Jimmy Wang, who of Shaw Brothers fame. Oh no, One Armed Swordman. He's just in the movie, and I guess I can understand how it'd be kind of disrespectful and also pointless, because Wang Fei Hong gets captured at the end. It's he's supposed to be a martial arts prodigy. I know he's 6 in the movie, but it just seems like it doesn't have. It's why do you have him in the movie at all? But this is prime example of fan service, because I can imagine the Hong Kong audience going oh, I know him. I know who Wang Fei Hong is. I like that he's in movie.
People were going ooh.
Oh, I remember things.
That's Wang Fei Hong. Look, he's doing the pose. Yeah. He's doing the pose. And he's kid. He's so cute.
That's our first fight scene, by the way.
I know that is the first fight scene.
The fight between 2 little 9-year-olds. There's that. There's the story with the evil bad guys who are plotting the whole train heist against the Japanese. There's also the Japanese. There's also the kooky bandits who start a fire. I thought they were the same people, but I was like, wait, this another group of bandits? And then there was an adulterous Sherlock Holmes in the movie.
Oh my god, I hated that storyline too.
Yeah.
I love the guy sneaking around. Every time he would go on the roof and just sneak past people like there was nothing else going on.
Yep.
But ultimately there's no payoff for that either.
Nope. We get a comedy scene at the end.
You get a comedy scene with him and 14 dudes hiding in the room, and I was no.
Yeah.
No, that served no purpose either. That cut it. cut it all.
Okay, well, obviously we're going to talk about this from an action standpoint because that's what we do. But what do you think of the comedy, Zero? I'm wondering if a lot of it is lost on you.
Probably. I don't think I laughed like once.
Okay. So, says someone who understands the language, I didn't laugh at all either.
Oh, okay.
I was like, man, this movie's just drags. There are some moments where I'm like, I can see why this would be funny. I don't think it's funny. Maybe I think it has nothing to do with the cultural or language barrier. I think it's just that's not my kind of humor. A lot of it's like very like lowbrow humor, in my opinion.
It felt kind of slapsticky. They were playing that kind of old timey music, like when somebody falls down, like the wah wah wah, like the horns, or like when someone's sneaking around, like those trombones going on in the background. Like it's like it's so on the nose, but it's of the time, so you can't really fault it. But if when you listen to that stuff now, you're just like, oh, this is so cheesy.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole cheese level to it, and it's intentional. Unfortunately, I see right past it. I'm like, it's not really my jam, and I like a lot of garbage. So like that, I think it just speaks to who like the kind of comedy that I like.
I mean, this feels family friendly. I mean, it's a New Year's Eve movie, so it's I'm not expecting like the garbage comedy that I like in this movie. Like, I'm not expecting extremely lowbrow. Sammo Hung dancing in drag in front of a bunch of Russian men who like manhandle him and like pull down his makeshift bra. It's like it's uncomfortable, but it's also written and directed by Sammo Hung, so he put himself in that situation. Yeah, he's very into self-deprecating humor.
Yeah. Kudos to him. Not every actor can do that. But you know what? I had to look past the comedy because I wasn't enjoying that. The story, I think it's a little bit all over the place. It feels a little bit directionless. There is one obviously major storyline, but it gets sidelined a lot because we have so many supporting characters that we mentioned before. I think we might have mentioned all of them. I don't really know. Like, there's actually more characters, all played by bigger names as well, or like at least like B, C list actors.
Well, I would say I would say under Sammo, the next big name is Yoon Bio.
Of course.
And his story being he is a firefighter who gets recruited to, I guess, like head police chief.
Yeah.
And then once Sammo Hung enters the town, he's like extremely suspicious of him. Rightfully so. He kind of finds that he's trying to blow up the train tracks and get all the people in the town. And like, it's a lot of them kind of butting heads. And then, hey, look, we're working together at the end. Teamwork. Yeah.
It takes a while until we get to that point. But for the most part, it really is them butting heads. Obviously, if the whole movie was just centered around this conflict between their distrust of one another, and I kind of think it would have been a better movie. Maybe
I would have liked that.
Yeah, but like we have so many these other characters that just kind of get thrown in there, and they really do pad out the movie. I guess with that storyline alone, it wouldn't have been enough to be a movie on its own, and that's why the movie is the way that it is. Yeah. But yeah, Yoon Bio, I think he should technically be considered the main character, at least the way that the movie plays out for me.
He's definitely the hero, the main protagonist, where Sammo Hung is like the anti-hero. Like you don't exactly root for him, but he is he is kind of a good guy at the same time.
Yeah. And of course the Western vibe kind of Sammo was a really big fan of like Westerns, and he grew up on them, so he wanted to like make a martial arts Western. So finally we're meeting that criteria for martial arts Western in our show. So like obviously it helps to bring in like other people from other like international audiences or international film spheres into the movie. So we have people like Richard Norton, Cynthia Rothrock, like playing in like old like 1800s or early 1900s era. So it kind of makes sense in that respect. And I think a lot of the information that we got out of this movie comes from what Cynthia Rothrock has reported in interviews when he did. She was basically telling us behind the scenes of like what happened during the production. So I say go check those specific interviews out. Especially on her YouTube channel. YouTube. Yeah. She goes into a lot of detail about like what happened and how incredibly rushed this production was. So like, as harsh as I am, I know how hard it was because this whole thing was filmed, if I remember correctly, in a month. The whole movie
not
was
that much.
Well, all of production was done in a month. Like,
okay,
usually it should be done like a couple months, not in 1 month. And it was just they basically just found a village in Taipo, is something like in northern Hong Kong, and like they basically built a set there. And I love like listening to Cynthia like talk about like the rough production, because like weren't allowed to sleep. There were no bathrooms. They were just told to go to an abandoned building and just shit there.
Oh my god!
Yeah, and it's dark. So I love this story because she said that she'd go into the building, and like she can't see where she's gonna have to go, but she would just slip. And she's like, "Oh, I don't want to know what I'm slipping on." I'm like, "Oh, that's fucking disgusting." No. But according to the Chinese, it's good luck if you step in shit. But yeah, okay. Like on the topic of the production, and like I guess this movie isn't completely without merit, right? Because the movie does excel in the action department when it gets good, I think. Even like given the fact that like I know how much production hell that it went through, it's a pretty good accomplishment with what they actually were able to get done. And I think the stunt work is by far the best thing about this movie, right?
Yeah, I do like the stunts. I think one of the most famous clips you'll see is Yunbio jumping off the second-story roof of a burning building, landing, and then walking over to some other actors and continuing lines like crazy. I think he broke his leg doing that.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way he could have walked away from that like completely unscathed because that looked fucking painful.
Yeah. Do you remember that scene from Righting Wrongs where he jumped off that building? He jumped off the second floor and he landed and he broke his back. This time he does something even higher, and it's all in this super wide shot, and you just see him just fucking falling down, landing on the sand, which is barely cushioning his fall. Yeah. And then without any cuts, he just continues to act right away.
Yeah. I'm sure they did, the typical Hong Kong stuff where they buried cardboard boxes, layered cardboard boxes and rugs and all that onto the sand. I'm sure they, tried to do everything they could to, absorb that impact. But still, jumping from that high, it's crazy how so nonchalant it is. Like, I like that they just don't draw attention to that. I would say one of the things that almost bothers me about this movie is they don't draw attention to some of the stunts because some of them are pretty good.
Yeah, for sure.
Another stunt I really like is when one of the policemen goes after Sammo Hung and he's on the roof of the building.
Yeah.
And he's just like, "Oh, I'm not following you. See ya." And he just jumps onto the floor below him and then the floor below that. And he jumps on this this railway, this marble rail, hand railing, I guess you could say. And you don't really think about it because the way it's shot in this 1 point perspective where you're looking directly at it. Like, you're not seeing it from a side angle, so you're not seeing that potential where the stuntman could just miss that hand railing that he's supposed to jump on first and then go to the second, the floor below.
Yeah. I think it helps that you and I do this show because watching that, the way that this movie filmed that, filmed those specific stunts and made it so matter of fact, barely have to pay attention to it. It almost does a disservice to the stunt work itself. But when I watched it, I was like, holy shit. I don't know if I needed another take of it. I was like, okay, I kind of like the fact that they just kind of brushed by it. I was perfectly fine because obviously they're trying to go for like a comedic effect, because if they harped on it, it would have like maybe robbed a little bit of the comedy out of it. But man, that stunt work is crazy. I feel like even you explaining it, you're like, I guess the only part that's missing is like not explaining how incredibly tall those each individual landing is, and he's just doing it with so much precision. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, I think in general, the best stunt work in the movie are all the big falls that everyone does. There's one more. Actually, it also happens right after a comedy scene where, after the adulterous Sherlock Holmes gets caught, and there's just like 15 people in the room, and then this one guy's just like sitting on sitting at the window, and they just shove him outside, and he just He does a backflip and lands. He does a backflip from the second floor and face plants on the ground.
Yeah, I can't recall. Does he land on his elbows, or is it just like flat on his face?
Just flat. It's just flat.
Okay, yeah.
I
mean, again, it's on sand. They probably padded it, but because you see him bounce.
Oh,
but still, like to just fall flat like that on your face, like ugh.
It's not pad. It's probably just like an old mattress that they have, because that's what they do. Oh boy, yeah. Like the stunt work is probably like my favorite element of it. But the action, in terms of the fighting, I don't know if there's anything specific that I love, but I'd say that the action's pretty impressive for the most part. It's I don't know, like impressive. Okay, maybe I'm going to backpedal on that. I think it's only impressive because all the choreography ends with like a major pratfall. Someone's getting seriously injured, and that's what makes the fighting good in this movie. But the actual fighting itself, I don't think is exceptional. I think it's just okay.
I would agree with that. Yeah, like we tend to like longer fights.
Yeah.
Fights that are drawn out just a little bit more, that have a little more choreography. There's a little more back and forth to it. I would say there's only maybe like 3 or 4 fights that actually do that, because the ending is essentially like a giant mosaic of fights.
Yeah.
It's like small little encounters, just one after the other. Like there's almost no time to breathe, because like as soon as you get one of those big pratfalls from one of the fights, like it goes immediately to the next fight. So that's kind of what I was mentioning earlier, where sometimes they don't hark on it, and it feels like you're getting robbed a little bit, because like in some of those moments I wanted them to maybe do a double take or something like that, because some of those hits look painful.
Right.
But yeah, once we get to the end, it's just nonstop action. Sometimes the cutting is so abrupt. I'm just like, oh, we're here now. Now we're fighting these people. Okay.
Yeah. I think a good example of that is when Dick Wei is fighting Yun Bu. Like, it hard cuts. We get like 3 other fights, and then finally gets back to them.
It gets
like,
back to them.
We lost all momentum between them. Like kind of wish.
Yeah, I wish that was its own self-contained fight.
Yeah.
And then I wish, like, I love Dick Wei, but then like him and Cynthia Rothrock, and then Richard Norton, I feel like there could have been consolidation there, because Richard Norton gets the short end of the stick. Like, he doesn't really get to do much at all. Like, he gets like one little fight against like a Japanese guy.
Right.
And then he just kind of gets kicked in the face a lot throughout the rest of it.
So that Japanese guy you're referring to, Yasuaki Kurata. Again, we've talked about him before.
Oh, that's Kurata. Okay.
Yes. What was that movie with Sonny Chiba? The monk movie, Legend of the Seven Monks or something like that.
Seven Monks.
Yeah. Like, he was in that as well. Kurata's in this movie. Yukari Oshima is in this movie. Huang. Oh wait, let's see. I forget his name. The bad dude from Drunken Master, Korean dude. Huang. Damn it, it's gonna bother me if I Huang Jung-lee. I have to remember this. Like, he plays a Korean, Japanese guy in this movie as well. All of them are, if you follow any martial arts at all, especially like the older older movies, or like even at the time, like the contemporary movies, like they're household names to some respect. They're kind of just squandered in this movie too. Like, they don't really get enough, I think.
I mean, they give them stuff to do, but because there's so many characters, they just get small little moments. And that's why I was kind of annoyed. Like, if we, made less characters, we could have these characters do more. But because you have 3 Japanese characters, you have to have them all try. They tried to give each one of them their own little time to shine. And unfortunately, like, some got it more than others.
Right. But I guess we can talk about the action since we're kind of already started talking about it a little bit more. You can listen to us on Patreon if you want to hear more about the action. Last week we actually released for the first time our first Let's Play, where we talked about Jackie Chan Stunt Master. So why don't you guys go check that out if you support us on Patreon, and also you'll. Oh wait, no, that's on YouTube.
That's just on YouTube normally. If you would like the longer extended play, that's on Patreon. But just the normal quick cut of us playing Jackie Chan Stunt Master, and we try to find as many movie references as we can. That was pretty fun. So that's on YouTube, but the full thing's on Patreon.
Okay, right. So listen to what Zero said. Don't ignore me. But yeah, speaking of Patreon, yes, you can listen to us talk about the action, which we'll start doing now, I guess. Hey guys, thanks for listening to the podcast. We're at the point where we give our recommendations, but there's a whole wealth of audio you would be listening to here if you follow us on Patreon. There you can listen to the entire episode, including an exclusive action breakdown of the fights in the movie. And now on to our final thoughts. Yeah, the Shanghai Express / Millionaire Express, it's interesting. It's kind of exactly what I imagined it be, but I kind of wish it wasn't. I kind of wish it was more. This is one of those movies that are kind of on most people's radars, right? People have heard of this movie. People have said that this is one of Sammo's better films, or it usually shows up on one of his lists. I don't know if it's one of I wouldn't say it's one of his best films, but I'd say it shows up a lot on his list.
Yeah, when I hear Sammo Hung and his listed movie, best Sammo Hung movies or whatnot, I usually hear this movie mentioned, and I never saw it before. This is my first time. So have you seen this before?
No, this is my first time too. So
first time too?
That's why I was hoping for more. It's not terrible. It's definitely not terrible. It's just not good. Because again, we always say this. You and I come from the standpoint we love fight scenes, we love action movies, we love martial arts movies, but we also love movies. Is the movie itself good? And I think at the end of the day, I don't think so.
Right. A good movie with characters to root for help to elevate fights. When it becomes personal, when you become invested in those characters, you root for them, so you want somebody to win at the end of the fight. Otherwise, it's just a brawl with people you don't know who they are and you don't care about.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, I love stunt work. I love choreography. I love all that jazz. But after sitting through the whole film, I'm just hoping. I'm when do we get to the fighting? Because I have nothing else to latch onto. And the date in our modern digital age too, it's if you're not going to have a good story with it, it might as well be a short fight scene that you just post on YouTube. And I hate to say that it's the most millennial thing I'll ever say in my life, but that's how I feel about the movie. I guess that's my recommendation. I don't really recommend the movie, but that doesn't mean I don't recommend the fight scenes. In fact, I'd say check out the fight between Yun Bu and Sammo, as you probably might have stumbled upon on YouTube or wherever else. And then the whole last 15 minutes of the movie is just an all-out action scene with multiple fighters. None of them are spectacular. We see much better entries from each one of these actors in different movies. So if you want to see them at their A game, you can check them out in the respective films. This movie kind of excels only in the fact that we have all of them, but none of them are doing anything spectacular. The only two of them the only two performers who are doing anything really good. Not two, but the two fight scenes are the Yun Bu versus Dick Wei fight and the Cynthia Rothrock versus Sammo fight. And even then, they're just okay. It really, all in all, I think all the action just comes down to like, how good are the stunt falls? How good are the pratfalls? So yeah, I don't know, like that's how I feel about the movie. I don't know, Zero, what are your thoughts?
I mean, pretty much the same thing. This is the first time watching it. Didn't know anything about it really. I just saw a few clips that people posted every now and then, thinking that they were just short little clips of the fights, but it ended up turning out to be I watched like the whole fights for a few of those moments. So I was a little disappointed. So I needed to kind of get that out of my mindset while I was watching it. I didn't hate the movie, although I did complain a lot about the story. I mean, it does all the things that I don't like with these kind of movies, where too many characters, like not enough action sometimes.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a tough recommend. If you've never seen it and you're kind of curious, I would say it doesn't hurt to give it a watch. But definitely the action is much better, even though the action isn't exactly what I like either. Like, I want longer fights. I don't like mosaic fights like these where they just kind of smash a whole bunch of small little fight moments together. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun stuff. It's 15 minutes of just action at the end. But you gotta wait for it. So it's like kind of a recommend for me, but more so to check out the action instead. Like I do kind of like the action, and I do like the stunts.
Yeah. All right. I don't know how to end this episode, because that basically just sums up how I feel about that too. I don't know. Yeah, I think the movie is maybe worth checking out just the one time, but yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely leaning more in the direction like just check out the fight scenes for sure.
Yeah,
the movie
maybe.
itself,
I mean,
not.
So this was a New Year's Eve, supposed to be like a Chinese New Year's movie. So maybe it's like a family film, right? You show with your parents. I don't know. Maybe they might find some of the adultery stuff.
Adultering Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, man. Yeah, adultering Sherlock Holmes. That imagery is great.
Oh, does that mean that his fat wife is Watson?
No, Sherlock Holmes isn't sleeping with Watson.